This is a WKYT podcast.
Good morning from WKYT News. We welcome you to Kentucky Newsmakers. I'm Bill Bryant. Later, Kentucky Auditor Mike Harmon on some of his recent findings when it comes to your tax dollars and the security of information. But first, he's been the president of UK now for nearly a decade. He's facing one of the biggest challenges of his presidency, and for that matter, for a generation. This weekend, students are moving back into their dorms, and COVID-19 is, of course, still out there, so some intensive safety protocols are underway. Will that be enough? And how will fall sports, including football, go forward in the middle of a pandemic? Dr. Eli Capilouto is here to talk with us about this very unusual school year. Good morning, sir. Thank you very much.
Good morning, Bill. Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
You know, we are all living history. We're very aware of that. We're living through a very challenging time as well. Your thoughts as students are moving back onto campus this weekend and you prepare for what is going to be, in some ways, a very extraordinary semester.
It is going to be extraordinary, and you use the word prepare. We really started preparing the day we sent students home in March. Recognizing we were going to have to see a reinvented normal. Move-in will be entirely different than it has been in previous years. But we started on that day. We ask ourselves every day, did we care? Will people look upon us and say, did they care, and answer affirmatively? So I know we care. University of Kentucky is full of heart and mind. We used our best assets, our people and ideas, came together with a comprehensive plan that included certainly taking advantage of the investments we've made in our campus in 6 million new and renovated square feet of space, introducing what we hope will be those things that make people adhere to wearing the mask, proper hygiene, cough and sneeze etiquette, and physical distancing. We can do that better given our physical space. For instance, every student will have their own room, which is a helpful way to stop the spread of this virus.
Are you confident, sir, about, you have a very ambitious effort going on to test every student before they start. There have already been some positives, we know that, and they have apparently been removed from the general population for now. Are you confident that that is the kind of precaution that will make campus safe?
Using the experts we turn to, that was the recommendation. Many colleges are not doing that. We are. We're not only just testing, but you have to trace. If somebody is positive, they immediately need to get into isolation. And then we have built our own contact tracing command center. Every person they've come in contact with, we're going to get in touch with and make sure they go into quarantine for 14 days, be tested if necessary. So, we're doing 1,500 students roughly a day. We get that results. We take it through our contact tracing system. Thus far, I feel pretty good about how quickly we've been able to react, because it's containing the virus that's important.
All right, President Capilouto, you can control to a large extent what happens on campus. But are you concerned that students, might socialize, go to get-togethers, maybe go to bars and so forth, and places out in the community, and get in contact with this or spread this to places off campus?
Well, I'm worried about spreading both ways, from the community to the campus and the campus to the community. Governor Beshear has done an excellent job in teaching us a lot about public health and what a positivity rate means. He has certainly looked at 5% as a number we have to pay attention to, keeping those numbers down. That's one we're watching as well. Kentucky overall is at 5% or around that number. We have to work together both in the community, on our campus, with all of our students, faculty, and staff to protect one another. Our health depends on everybody else's health. So yes, we're going to be quite rigorous in monitoring what goes on our campus, what's going on in community, and we're expecting a lot out of our students. This generation needs to answer a call, and we're going to certainly work with them so that they will answer in the positive.
One of the things is that they're having to, in many cases, take their classes online. You're trying to do as much in person as you can, but some of them, as you know, have pushed back in paying the full tuition and then being told that they're finding out that their class is going to be more online than they thought. What do you have to say to them?
Well, we want to be transparent with our students to let them know, which courses will either be fully online or hybrid, which is a mixture of in-person and a digital means, and then some that are fully online. We're working with every student to make sure that they are accommodated in the way that they expect. And so we certainly understand it takes more work to work with them. We're on top of it. And we put a ceiling on how much students could be charged regardless of the credit hours they're taking. So we're trying to take some of that cost uncertainty out of all of this. And at the same time, we have to protect our faculty and staff that support students.
What will be your guideline, your guidepost, if you determine that you're going to have to retreat from this plan some? I know right now the plan is to try to get the students on campus and get them through this semester. What will you be watching to determine if you can continue that at pace?
Sure. Well, first of all, this testing that we're doing is going to give us a great insight. Also, everyone, including all our faculty, staff, and students, will have a app on their smartphone. Every day you'll need to attest to see if you have any of the symptoms associated with COVID. If you do, we're trying to make it easy to be safe. We can tell you, you know what, remain in your residence, because we went ahead and wired nearly all of our classrooms for two-way communications. You'll be able to stay where you are, not worry about missing a particular lecture, don't take the risk of coming in, of infecting anybody, and be able to participate in that class. So those are the kinds of things we're doing. Yeah. We will monitor those to see what kind of symptoms, and given our command center, we'd be able to see, for instance, if they were springing up in a particular residence hall. We may immediately go in and test. I also hope that in the near future, the type of test we're able to use, what's commonly referred to as point of care testing, is available so you can get quick turnaround. That's a hope, and I hope that supply line works. We always are looking into that kind of opportunity. And then importantly, something I check almost every morning, and that is what kind of capacity do we have at our hospital. And also, I know the state and all of us are looking at the capacity we have in all our hospitals, given that if we were to have a wavelet or a surge, can we have the beds and the intensive care units so that people can be treated? And it tends to be those who are older or who have health complications that make them more prone to the serious consequence of this illness.
Right. Let me go there with you. UK Healthcare recently been ranked the state's top hospital. You've been very busy there during this pandemic. Are you ready for what's to come? And is the hospital in good financial shape given all that's going on?
Well, first of all, we prepared for what we thought was a surge. We even put up in 2 weeks a field hospital with 400 additional beds. We have surge capacity within our hospital. If we had to do something like that, we could certainly turn to it. We know how to do it now. It turns out that surge did not come. Again, that's because we all behaved appropriately, and we were shut down in many respects. But we also know we've got to live in this COVID world, and if we're living in it, we've got to do it as safely as possible. Yeah. Yes, we have surge capacity. Right now, we monitor it every day.
The SEC plans a 10-game schedule right now, all conference season. That means no Kentucky-Louisville game. But is it reasonable, do you think, Mr. President, to conclude that this contact sport of football can be played this fall?
Certainly, it poses challenges. We are following the experts in terms of medical care and precautions. We work with the NCAA medical group, chief medical officer. The conferences have outstanding medical teams. So we're implementing all of those, but we want all of our student athletes to know this. We're gonna share everything with you. If you feel like you wanna sit out, your scholarship is not in jeopardy, and we're working with the NCAA to make sure you don't have to worry about losing eligibility. We're working those rules out. We'll do that soon. And, you know, I feel like the tight monitoring we're doing is teaching us a lot. We're learning from basketball, NBA basketball, we're learning from baseball, and we'll certainly learn from the NFL. But we've got to be open to be flexible for any kind of disruption.
Well, I'm sure that's comforting for the student athletes to know that the precautions are taken and that it should be that their scholarships are safe. You know, this, Mr. President, has been a historic year in so many ways. This week you unveiled a plan for more diversity and inclusion on campus, and you've put some real hard dollars into this effort. You have said that UK needs to face up to some realities. What do you expect people will see here?
Well, we recognize that if we're to overcome many of the micro that result in macro challenges, we need to get many people involved. So we're trying to create a process, our diversity, equity, and inclusion led by Dr. George Wright, our Vice President for Institutional Diversity, to have a big tent, big table, get the best ideas we can, and act on them quickly. So one of the things we've been working on for a good while was this joint research opportunity with the NAACP and our College of Education. We were fortunate to announce that this week. We also were working with our Black Studies faculty in setting up a Commonwealth Institute. We got that started. But I'm very excited about our Unite research program, because that is going to offer an opportunity for every college and department to participate in these activities, to uncover and overcome what has held us back too long. And we have got to meet our promise. That's our responsibility to our campus, to our society, and to the Commonwealth.
UK President Dr. Eli Capilouto, thank you so much for being with us today. We appreciate it, and we've sort of covered the waterfront on topics, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Stay safe.
Thank you. Same to you. And stay with us. We're coming back with Kentucky's State Auditor Mike Harmon next on Kentucky Newsmakers. Welcome back to Kentucky Newsmakers. Glad to have you here on WKYT. State Auditor Mike Harmon's office has been busy in recent months despite the pandemic. In fact, some of how money is being spent to respond to coronavirus is one of the things the auditor is keeping an eye on. He's also looking into data breaches within the state's overwhelmed state unemployment system. And this week, he referred information that he found about a city's spending to other state and federal authorities. Mike Harmon is serving his second term as Kentucky's state auditor. He is a former state representative, and during his tenure, Harmon's mantra has been follow the data. Mr. Auditor, thank you. We appreciate very much you being with us today.
Glad to be here today in these unique circumstances, Bill, that we face.
Aren't they, though? First of all, what can you tell us, Mr. Auditor, about the findings regarding the city of Salyersville?
Yeah, we had some tips about some concerns about how the Salyersville tourism dollars were being spent. So we went in and did a basic review. And yesterday we issued a letter with two findings. One of the findings we looked is how tourism dollars were being managed and oversaw. And one of the things we found was that the mayor, the tourism commission that's supposed to oversee the dollars had not met since 2009. And when we were looking at it, we also found that two of the mayor's sons were being paid for out of that particular fund, the tourism fund. And one of his sons, who was also working for the local housing authority, actually appeared as if he was double billing, because we found overlap of 148 instances for a total of 224 hours where he had billed the housing authority and the city when he was on contract with the city.
Has there been a response from the mayor or the city?
In this particular one, since we issued a letter instead of a full-blown audit, we didn't have a response incorporated into our letter. However, it's my understanding that he has replied to some of the local press. I think the Herald Leader may have had a couple of comments from him, and maybe some of the other stations that had a comment or two from him.
The Tourism Commission, you said, has not met since 2009. I mean, how does that happen? Is it clear how frequently these local boards and commissions should meet?
Yeah, I'd have to go back and actually review the legislation to see how often specifically they're supposed to meet. There are rules and guidelines within the law about how they're supposed to be formed and what their duties and responsibilities are. But, it's quite evident that they are supposed to be overseeing the tax dollars. If you're going to levy a tax, then, for tourism, then based on the way that it's structured. Now, one thing we did find was, one of our recommendations was that the mayor should make sure that the commission begins to meet, and if need to actually appoint new members if they're no longer active. And so he appointed 4. Their ordinance had actually called for 5, and if reviewing the statutes, it looks as if they're supposed to be 7. But one of the things we do know for sure is they are supposed to oversee the tax dollars that were being spent for tourism. And from what we could tell, about half of what was being expended out of those tax dollars was actually just going to normal governmental items. We looked at 63 samples to make that determination.
Now, that restaurant money tax is supposed to go strictly for tourism expenditures, right?
Yeah. That's supposed to generate revenue to help bring other people into the community, to generate more revenue for the community, and therefore, eliminating some of the burden on the local taxpayers in that community.
About 10 years ago, there was a series of eye-opening audits under former Auditor Crit Llewellyn about how some folks who take positions on boards and commissions and are appointed by the mayors and the local governments, maybe in the case of the county, the judge executive, sometimes don't realize the responsibilities they've taken on. They see it as an honor. They see it as something they'll do for show up at some meetings for the locality, and that's right. That. But they have serious responsibilities. Do you think that folks on those boards and commissions understand that?
I'm not sure about that specific board. I'm sure that there are boards out there where people, just as you said, believe that it's an honor and don't realize that most boards that are formed are actually working boards. So, I would encourage anybody, if they're looking to be on a board, hopefully people are willing to serve, but certainly realize that there are responsibilities whenever you are on a board.
This pandemic certainly has been surreal, a time for all of us, as we were talking about earlier. The economy went from prosperous to a deep recession, this historic high unemployment, and Kentucky's unemployment system obviously was overwhelmed with the historic requests for help. And there have been at least 2 data breaches that we now know about. What are your concerns there?
Well, you're really concerned, especially in a time when everybody's already struggling. Identity theft is, very real and very serious to individuals. And certainly if they're already struggling financially, not sure if they're going to be able to make their bills, and then someone steals their credit or still even, takes their bank accounts. So it is a concern. And obviously our biggest concern was there was a law passed in 2014. The former auditor here, Auditor Adam Edlin, championed a bill in 2014. I actually happened to be in the House at that time, in House Bill 5, I believe the number was. And on that particular bill, if you have a data breach, especially a government data breach, that you are supposed to notify the individuals as well as there's certain responsibilities in reporting to the Attorney General, to the Auditor's office. And the Attorney General had became aware that it appeared that there might have been a breach almost a month earlier, a while back, and they reached out to the governor's office, and they identified that there was in fact a breach, and then they notified us. But that was 30 days past the breach. A lot of damage can be done during that time. So it's very important if there is a breach to make sure that the proper notifications is done so that we can properly address it.
Mr. Auditor, at a time like this when money is being spent fast, this under emergency declarations, do you have some concerns that some of the safeguards in how that money is being accounted for may go by the wayside?
We do have concerns. Our staff has been very proactive in working with officials and forming certain ad hoc groups that are kind of studying. Some of the money that was pushed out very quickly early on had very little guidance, and so we've been working with them to try to provide as much guidance. Some guidance has followed, but you have to be very careful because a lot of these officials may or may not realize that there will be responsibilities, and typically any time that they expend in any given fiscal year $750,000 or more of federal dollars, in addition to having their standard audit, they will also be subject to what's known as the single audit, which is just a way for the federal government to kind of confirm that money's being spent are in fact being spent the way that they were intended.
You also made a criminal referral when you looked into a program within the Lawrence County Attorney's Office. Media reports indicate there was federal activity apparently used there to gather information. Can you tell us anything new about that?
Not anything new other than what's already being reported in the press. Obviously, we did an audit we released, I guess, a few months ago about the county attorneys. We did an initial sampling when we had a previous audit that we looked at of 16 county attorneys. Then we narrowed that down to 9 based on that as well as some other tips. And we found we had 9 findings, but 3 that were kind of major. One of them you referred to as the Lawrence County attorney. He had paid over $134,000 in bonuses, but about 94% of that went to his wife over a 2-year period. And so it was a little over I think it was $126,000. So as part of that, we went ahead and referred that, to the FBI and some other agencies, just so that they can review to make sure that everything was correct in that regard. Now, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, a few seconds left here. Just wanted to ask you, how do you conduct audits in this situation, given that it is difficult to get in there in those offices and dig through records when the requirements of social distancing and so on are in place?
Sure. I mean, it's been tough, but we were very aggressive from the very beginning because safety is the utmost importance for our staff and our team. And so what we did initially was we had already having some of our people be able to telework from home 1 day a week. So we were able to have the majority of our staff telework from home. We reached out to the officials that we were auditing and asked them to package as much as they could and either mail it to us or email us the information so that our staff could be reviewing it. And recently, since things have kind of loosened up a little bit, we're still working with the officials. We have a certain protocol we follow. We also request our people follow any protocol the local officials might have. And then we have them, to the best of their ability, package the information up, put it in a room by itself, and then our individuals will go and review the data and take what they need and go back home and review it. So the safety is the utmost, and we do the best we can to make sure that's taken care of.
State Auditor Mike Harmon, thanks as always. We appreciate you giving us an update.
Thank you, Bill. Really appreciate you.
Stay with us. We're coming right back on WKYT's Kentucky Newsmakers. We're back on Kentucky Newsmakers, and we are less than 100 days away from the presidential election. And this pandemic continues to impact almost every aspect of our lives. Our chief national political analyst, Greta Van Susteren, explains.
Hello, I'm Greta Van Susteren, and here is your full court fast break. COVID-19 again spiking across the nation, turning the presidential race on its head. We now know Vice President Joe Biden will not accept his party's nomination in Milwaukee at the Democratic National Convention. Meanwhile, President Trump's poll numbers are suffering. According to a Real Clear Politics poll average, nearly 60% of Americans disapprove of the way he's handling the pandemic. Real Clear Politics also shows President Trump trailing Vice President Biden by 7 percentage points. The White House is not the only thing at risk. Republicans could potentially lose the Senate. The GOP controls the chamber by a razor-thin margin, 53 to 47 seats. And this year, the Republicans are defending 25 of the 38 Senate seats in play. One Senate race getting a lot of attention this week is in Kansas. GOP leaders are breathing a sigh of relief after Tuesday's Republican primary. Congressman Roger Marshall beat polarizing conservative and former Kansas Secretary of State Chris Kobach for the party's Senate nomination. Many Republicans worried Kobach, who already lost a gubernatorial race, would alienate center-right voters and jeopardize the Republican-held seat. Even Democrats viewed Kobach as a more beatable candidate. But now, Marshall will face off against State Senator Barbara Bollier in the general election. Want more Full Court Press? Tune in Sundays. We bring politics home, covering the national stories that impact you.
And you can catch Full Court Press with Greta Van Susteren this morning at 11:30 on WKYT. Well, that's Kentucky Newsmakers. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you bright and early this week on WKYT This Morning, and you make it a good week ahead.